There are roughly 200,000 tickets sold at a single AKB48 National Handshake event. Fans spend thousands of yen for a few seconds of eye contact and a handshake with their favorite idol. The line moves fast. The girls stand in a tent, a table between them and the next person, and then the next. It is designed to feel intimate. On May 25, 2014, a man walked into that intimacy with a saw hidden in his bag. He was not a fan. He had no favorite member. He didn't know their names. He chose this venue for one reason only, and it had nothing to do with music. This is the story of the AKB48 Handshake Assault. The venue was the Iwate Industry Culture and Convention Center in Takizawa, Iwate Prefecture, a large convention complex in the mountains of northeastern Japan, about 2.5 hours from Tokyo, by bullet train. AKB48 was holding a national handshake tour, one of dozens they run across the country every year, where fans who have purchased tickets at convenience stores get to meet members briefly, one after another, in rows of long tents inside gymnasium-style halls. The event started in the morning. Hundreds of fans queued in orderly lines. The members took their places at their tables. At some point in the early part of the day, a man entered one of the tents. His name was Satoru Umeta. He was 24 years old, from the city of Tawada in Aomori Prefecture, just north of Iwate. He had purchased a valid ticket like everyone else. He passed through the venue's screening, such as it was, and joined the line. When he reached the front, he did not extend his hand. Instead, he reached into his bag and produced a folding handsaw, a blade roughly 20 centimeters long, with a total length of about 50 centimeters when open. He attacked. 2 AKB48 members were standing at the entrance to the tent. Anna Iriyama was 18 years old. Rina Kawai was 19. Both were injured within seconds. A male staff member rushed in and was cut trying to restrain Umeta. He was subdued and arrested at the scene. Anna Iriyama suffered a fracture to her right pinky finger and a laceration to the head. Rina Kawai suffered a laceration and a bone fracture to her right thumb. Both were taken by ambulance to a hospital in Morioka and underwent surgery. The male staff member was also treated for his injuries. All 3 were released from hospital by the end of the day. The rest of the event was immediately cancelled. AKB48's management company, AKS, suspended all handshake events across all sister groups pending a security review. To understand how Satoru Umeta got a handsaw into an idle handshake event, you first have to understand how handshake events actually work. They are enormous. A national event like the one in Takizawa might see tens of thousands of fans come through across a full day. The tickets are sold at convenience stores. A few hundred yen buys a single handshake with a specific member. Fans sometimes buy dozens of tickets for multiple slots with the same idol. The venues are typically large public spaces, convention halls, arenas, gymnasiums. Members sit or stand at tables in tents or booths. Staff circulate in the aisles. Security at the time of the 2014 attack typically consisted of venue staff, some AKB-affiliated crew, and in some events a few off-duty police officers. There were no metal detectors. There was no bag scanning equipment. The standard checks amounted to ticket inspection and visual observation. Umeta entered carrying a bag, as most fans do. The saw was inside. Nobody stopped him. He had purchased a valid ticket, queued in the line, and walked up to Iriyama and Kawai when his number came up, the way thousands of other fans had done that morning. Then he produced the saw. The attack lasted seconds before staff managed to reach him. It is worth noting what happened to the charges. Umeta was initially arrested on suspicion of attempted murder, but the prosecution ultimately filed charges of bodily injury and violation of the firearms and swords control law. He was not prosecuted for attempted murder at trial. Here is the thing many people find the most difficult part of this case. Satoru Umeta was not an AKB48 fan. He had no connection to the group, no special grudge against these 2 members in particular. He did not know Anna Iriyama's name or Rina Kawai's. He had seen AKB48 on television. That was the extent of it. When investigators questioned him, his stated motive was blunt and cold. He said he had been bored because he could not find a job and had no income. He had been unemployed since January 2014, about 4 months before the attack. He said he chose to target women because, as he put it, they were weak. The judge presiding over his trial, Takehiko Okada of the Morioka District Court, described Umeta's actions as driven by frustration at his failure to find employment. Sitting in that failure, unable to see a way forward, he had not targeted idols because he was obsessed with them. He had targeted an idol event because it gave him access to people he could hurt. He had chosen a venue where women were close, accessible, and surrounded by fans who were trained to queue and not make a scene. It is also said, and this comes from investigative reporting rather than the confirmed court record, that Umeta had been struggling for longer than the 4 months since losing his job. He came from Towada, a mid-sized city in Aomori, far from the major urban job markets. Some accounts describe a pattern of failed employment attempts stretching back further than 2014. None of this is confirmed in the official record, and the full picture of his personal history remains incomplete. What is confirmed is the targeting logic. He wanted to hurt someone. He believed women would be less able to fight back. He found an event that would put him within arm's reach of women in a setting designed to prevent defensive reactions. And he used it. It is important to say at the outset that no formal psychiatric evaluation of Umeta's mental state has been made public, and what follows is interpretive rather than clinical. Take it as context, not as diagnosis. What the AKB48 attack shares with several other Japanese violent incidents from the same era is the particular structure of the rage. Economic grievance, directed outward at targets perceived to represent ease or abundance. We saw this pattern in the Akihabara massacre of 2008, where Tomohiro Kato was a dispatched factory worker who felt discarded by a system that had given others stability. We saw traces of it in the Ikebukuro and Shimonoseki rampages of 1999. In each case, the attacker had come to see the world as having dealt them a losing hand, and the people around them as beneficiaries of something they themselves had been denied. In Umeta's case, the targeting was more specific in one dimension and more indiscriminate in another. He was not after AKB48 as a symbol of anything in particular. He was after women, specifically, in a location where they could not easily defend themselves. There is something almost procedural about his selection, the way a person scans a room for the most accessible target, that sits differently from ideological or obsessive violence. He wasn't there for a cause. He wasn't there for a fantasy. He was there because the door was open. That door, it is worth examining, was not accidental. The handshake event format is a commercial product built entirely on the premise of manufactured closeness. For a small amount of money, a complete stranger can stand within arm's reach of a famous person, unscreened, for several seconds. This is, by design, the selling point. The idol is accessible. The fan is close enough to make eye contact. That specific configuration, celebrity proximity for purchase, had never been seriously stress-tested as a security environment, because the people running these events had modeled for one kind of threat and not another. The industry understood the risk of the obsessive fan. It had informal protocols built around attendees who might become unhinged in their attachment to a specific member. What it had not modeled was the person who had no attachment at all, who was simply looking for a place to find a target. Umeta walked through the gap between those two threat models. That gap is worth sitting with because it says something about how we build systems for public safety. We tend to design security around the threats we can imagine most easily. The known category of person, the recognizable behavior. The harder problem is the threat that doesn't look like a threat, because it has no recognizable motive, no prior relationship to the target, no warning signs that fit the pattern we've been looking for. The AKB48 event staff were looking for people acting strangely, behaving inappropriately, showing obvious distress. Umeta, by every account, looked like a fan. He queued, he waited, he moved with the crowd. He was invisible until the moment he wasn't. Satoru Umeta was sentenced to 6 years in prison at the Morioka District Court on February 10, 2015. Judge Takehiko Okada stated that Umete's actions were cruel and very hazardous, which could have taken people's lives, and that the fear experienced by the victims during the event, where they were meeting with fans, and the mental damage were significant. The 6-year sentence was for bodily injury and violations of the firearms and swords control law, following the prosecution's decision not to proceed with the attempted murder charge at trial. Both Anna Iriyama and Rina Kawai recovered physically. Rina Kawai did not recover in the same way psychologically. The following March 26, 2015, less than 10 months after the attack, she announced her departure from AKB48. In the idol industry's formal language, this is a graduation. She cited specifically her inability to participate in handshake events after the attack. She could not go back to that tent, that table, that line of strangers within arm's reach. She transitioned to acting, and she has spoken carefully in interviews about what the attack did to her sense of safety in public spaces. Anna Iriyama continued with the group and graduated in 2017 as planned. AKB48 resumed handshake events on July 5, 2014. About 6 weeks after the attack, at the Tokyo Big Sight Exhibition Center. The new format looked different. Attendees now passed through metal detectors. All bags were hand-searched. Each attendee was limited to one bag with total dimensions not exceeding 90 centimeters. And bags could not be brought to the handshake table itself. They had to be left outside the booth during the handshake. Sister groups, SK48, NMB48, HKT48 and others, adopted similar protocols as they gradually resumed their own events. The idol industry did not abandon the handshake format. It tightened it. The proximity is still for sale. The screening is now better. Whether better means safe enough is a question the industry continues to answer implicitly by continuing. Umeta, having received 6 years, would have completed his sentence around 2021. His current whereabouts are not publicly reported. What this case keeps asking is a question that goes beyond the attacker and the victims. What are the costs hidden inside entertainment products built on access? The handshake event was not designed as a dangerous place. It was designed to make fans feel seen and to give idols a real, if brief, relationship with the people supporting their careers. It was, in intent, a generous format. And it was exploited not by an obsessed fan whose devotion turned dark, but by a man who had no connection to any of it, who simply identified an open door and walked through it. Rina Kawai is still working, still visible in Japanese entertainment. That matters. She did not disappear after this. But the handshake events she once stood at, the format that was part of her daily working life, those are somewhere she cannot go back to. That is the loss she carries. And it came not from someone who cared about her, but from someone who didn't care about her at all. If you found this episode useful or moving, subscribing helps more people find the channel. We'll be back with another case very soon.